Let me ask you to picture something. An industrial landscape birthed from the ashes of an apocalypse. The people here breathe smoke, their oceans are filled with plastic. A child sits alone in a room, gasping for air. He has your eyes. They're filled with fear. And then, a guy in a baseball uniform comes by and
faces all around. The industry is crumbling down. Whether the weather is fair or not, the baseball player, he must be stopped. Faces all around. The industry is crumbling down. Whether the weather is fair or not, the baseball player, he must be stopped.
After almost a year of it being announced, Off has finally released on Steam, and my god, it was worth the wait. I was a bit hesitant about the quality of the remake ever since I played the demo, especially in the music department, but now that the full game has been released, I can safely say that those worries have been shattered. This is definitely better than the original game in almost every single way. I've been trying to get this video out as soon as possible because this game already meant so much to me, and with the remaster complete, I can confidently say that it is now my second favorite game of all time. One Shot's still number one. But damn, this game is good. The remaster doesn't try to push itself as a complete replacement of the original, which I appreciate heavily because the original still definitely has aspects that I prefer, especially the music. Still, despite that, the remake is so much better than the original. I'll be talking about the four main pillars of this game's design, those being the gameplay, visuals, audio, and story. Let's start with the gameplay. First of all, this is a bit obvious, but the combat is miles better than the original. The combat being so flawed is probably what caused this remake to even be made in the first place, and it is significantly improved here. This is one of my favorite combat systems in any RPG, it's genuinely that good. Every single fight is mechanically engaging, and it's not just press auto and win like it was in the original. Speaking of, I think the decision to remove the auto battle was definitely a good choice. If you didn't want to do an encounter, you could just flee from it instead. You shouldn't be rewarded the same amount for your inattentiveness. If I had to point out one flaw with the combat system, I think that it could be a little more clear which character you were selected on, especially since it automatically selects a character when the meter is full. The name being very low makes it hard to read outside of your peripheral. This is a bit annoying since you're going to be looking up because that's where your moves and the enemies are. Other than that, the combat system is very well designed, and I especially love how they reworked the crit mechanic, making something completely random into something you can strategize around. I found myself changing my plan a lot when either I or an enemy got a crit, and it's variance that definitely helps keep the combat engaging. The combat system overall is much better and much harder, which is a significant bonus. Now, there are quite a few more secret bosses in this version, so let's talk about all of them. The first three all appear in the Purified Zones, starting with Source in Zone 1. This one isn't a very interactive boss, and it's quite passive. It spends most of its turns just healing itself, so it's more so just a DPS check for your party. It is still a fun boss, and there are a few attacks that can damage you, making it not completely mindless, but it is a very simple boss. The second boss is literally just a crab. He uses crab attacks and grabs you. I'm not a fan of this fight, mostly because he creates protective bubbles throughout the fight, which makes it drag on a lot. The fight would be a pretty standard and fun fight outside of it, so I'm a bit confused as to why they added it. My original run took a lot of time, which was very annoying. Still, it's a pretty decent fight. I especially love the animations here. The third fight is against Hereditorius and Solmanazar. I hope I'm pronouncing those right. The gimmick for the fight is that there's two of them, and they apply status effects like Vilify and Defame, which can't be removed by Belial's meat. Vilify is just the same as Mute, but Defame is unique. You need to defend with one character, or else the entire party dies. The character you defend with will die, but the rest of the party will live, albeit with a bit of damage taken. This is a very fun fight, and it's not like it entirely revolves around the gimmick, so you constantly have to plan out your strategy. When one of them dies, the pressure of the fight gets reduced significantly, which is very good and also a bit expected from a duel fight. My only real complaint with this boss is the theming. Each of the secret bosses represents a zodiac sign, and this one represents Pisces. My confusion is why they made it a dual boss. If they wanted to make a dual boss, why didn't they make it Gemini? It was really obvious. Well, it doesn't affect it much. This might be my favorite of the new bosses. The fourth is Justus, a reflection of the batter and his actions, and it only appears after you've killed the previous 3 bosses and are at Chapter 1. The theming is about as subtle as a brick slamming into your face at 20 miles per hour. He uses the same moves you and your add-ons have, and he speaks in the same mannerisms as you, calling you a specter and trying to purify you. This boss's stats are a bit high, especially with the ultimate home run attack, but it's still a very good boss, and I can excuse the stats because this is an endgame boss. The fifth secret boss is Carnival. It appears after defeating the fourth, and a spiral appears in the top right corner of the nothingness. The boss cycles between all 4 of the other boss's attacks, and the gimmick is that there's a random chance for a party member to get a prize when their turn ends or they get hit. The prize fills a part of your turn meter, and it helps keep the fight much more active than the other 4 bosses. It's a very fun fight, even if it is a bit random. It can drag on a bit if you're not using the fast combat system, but this was definitely a personal issue of mine, and not necessarily a flaw of the boss. This might be my second favorite of the new bosses. And the boss's track is also amazing. The final secret boss is Cobb, who only appears in Chapter 0 after the queen is dead. Some stairs will open up and lead to him. His gimmick is that he has the Vilify status that Hereditorius uses, but it also affects your ability to use items. He also chooses one random party member to instantly kill each cycle, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. He also uses an AoE attack, but it's percentage-based, meaning it'll never kill you, and you don't have to worry about it at all. I'm really not that big of a fan of this fight. It feels way too gimmicky for a final boss, and it can be confusing at first, which is a problem because of how long the fight is. There's also a point where you can pretty much be screwed and have to wait slowly for the cycle to finish before you can actually die. The game doesn't have the Alt F12 quick reset that the original had, which is quite annoying for this fight. My other complaint is that you get nothing for the fight beyond cosmetic, but it's incredibly late into the game, so there's not much you could receive. I think maybe a new game plus or even a hard mode could be a good reward and increase the replayability. I don't think these are necessary at all, but they're definitely suggestions I would consider. Moving on, the combat has 3 speeds: Thoughtful, Normal, and Relentless. Thoughtful is incredibly slow and is basically an easy mode. Normal is just the normal speed and only stops for battle text, and Relentless is basically the same as the original was at. I played on normal on my first playthrough, which was a problem during the fastest battles, such as the although this was definitely my fault. I do enjoy the extra speeds for accessibility and easier difficulty without directly changing the stats of enemies. I enjoy every change made to the combat, and they were definitely necessary for the remaster. Great job, devs. You excelled at the most important category for the game. And now we can move on to the visuals. The game has an entirely new art style by Mortis, most prominent in the border art. One thing that isn't affected by the new art style is the combat visuals. The animations are a lot more active, with the batter going up to directly hit the enemies rather than just jumping slightly forward. This makes the fights feel much more immersive and are a simple but great change. The new bosses also look amazing and fit the world perfectly. The crab is the only one that's even remotely normal, but his attack animations are phenomenal, and all the boss animations are incredibly smooth, which are very nice. It's great to see the game get smoothed out much more, and it feels so nice that it evolved from RPG Maker. My only complaint with these is that Epsilon's AoE attack now has to individually hit every single enemy, rather than the snappy way it was in the original. This gets really annoying when fighting swarms of enemies, such as the... It does make the attack feel a bit less memorable, but it doesn't make the combat feel any longer, and the attack is still the same. Now for the new art style. These are most evident in the borders of the game, which are reflective of each area of the game. There's also some custom ones for defeating secret bosses like Sugar. The borders look great, and you can definitely tell that the art style is still Mortis from how it fits the game. The art style definitely wasn't replaced, as all of the sprites in the original are still here, including the photo of Zachary, which is great. I really appreciate that. The 2 art styles are very good, and I don't really think I can say which one is definitively better, but if I had to choose one, I like the old one because it's more unique. I'm not discrediting the new one, but I really love how the digitized pencil drawings the original had. And now, for the aspect I think most people were concerned about for the remake, the music. I and many others were a bit hesitant that the soundtrack would be as good as the original, and while I still don't think it is as good, it gets pretty damn close. It's a really good soundtrack. I can't really think of a song that outright eclipses what it replaced, but almost all of them are on par. For example, I was concerned that Enoch's theme would lack the sirens, as they're my favorite part of the original. I am still disappointed at their exclusion, but the song makes up for it and becomes about as good as the original. On the other end of the spectrum, however, you have the replacement for the Purified Zones themes. It sucks. It's way too empty and makes the Purified Zones seem much less scary than they were in the original. And this is made even worse when you realize that the secretaries have normal attacks and don't scream. These things were why the Purified Zones were so scary, and to see both of them completely gutted is very disheartening. They really don't make the batter feel as evil, and it almost leads to false security, since you feel there's nothing wrong with them, and that the secretaries are fairly normal in purified areas. I really dislike the direction they took with the purified zones, which kinda sucks since it's related to all of the new secret bosses. But moving back to the more positive sides of things, I really enjoyed the variety of musicians that are here. I was concerned that the soundtrack would feel too samey, especially since they were new tracks that don't have the staying power of ACC, but they managed to remove my fear of that with the artists they got. They got Toby Fox, Morisk, Night Margin, and even more. Morisk seems to have the most tracks in the OST, which makes sense as he made most of the ambient songs. They definitely fit the game well, and all of the artists did a very good job. Except the Flesh-based Tango replacement, it's kinda dumb. Still, the music is not the only thing that changed. Many characters had their talk sounds change, and I think they're just as fitting as the original. I don't really have much to say other than that I'm glad Zachary's voice remained the same. That one was too iconic to replace. And the last thing is that the combat sounds evolved from RPG Maker as well, and they sound very unique. I do kinda miss the original sounds, especially since they were so iconic, but the new sounds make each attack even more unique and memorable. There's definitely a lot of care put into it, and they all feel fitting for the attack that goes on. While the music isn't quite as good as the original soundtrack, it's still close, and the audio is on par with, if not better, than the original. Also, one last thing, why is the Space Ape song so good? It was just a 30-second jingle in the original, but now it's an actual song, and a really good one. This is definitely the only song that I think clearly eclipses its ACC variant, and it's really confusing as to why, because the Space Ape scene is already so short. Why did they make a 2-minute song for a short-ass joke ending? Alright, I gotta get back on topic. Lastly is the story. There's basically nothing new here. None of the secret bosses have any real lore or explanation, they're just there. Although they do bring up an interesting question, notably from the crab, of if the purified zones are just a layer over the actual zones, because you can see the area around the eye peels out into pink. However, when he dies, the peel goes away, which leads me to believe that this was just a part of the boss itself, and that the color of the zone was not preserved. That's basically everything new I could discern from the story. Although, there is one other thing to note. The dialogue is all ripped from translation version 3.0, meaning it's basically the canonical translation version. This was obviously necessary as version 2.0 has an error towards the end, which was a major story change that had to be fixed. I don't mind the 3.0 translation being used, as it's the one I played on all the time, but I can understand if some people were upset about it being removed. There's not really any solutions that I can think of, especially since it'd be very confusing for newer players to have two separate options of dialogue that only changes small details, save for the ending where the context of the story is massively changed. For the people that wanted the 2.0 translation to be used, all I can say is play the original. I really hate how reductive this answer is, as the original doesn't have any of the new additions that the remake has, but I can't think of anything else. The story in the remake was left completely intact, so there's nothing lost there. If you just want to play it for the story, do 2.0. If you want it for the gameplay, do the remaster. That's about all I can say. Still, it's not like I dislike the 3.0 translation. All of the dialogue is still there, and it's still very easy to understand, so nothing much was lost. Overall, this game is phenomenal, and refines pretty much every aspect from the original 2008 release into a modern 2025 version, and I love it so much. As I've mentioned, Off is now my second favorite game of all time. That's how good the remaster is. While I do have a few minor gripes like the changes to the purified zones, this game is still amazing, and they aren't nearly enough to outweigh the final product. It really shows the potential that Off could have if the combat system was good, and this remaster takes that potential and goes miles with it. Even without all the other new content, visuals, etc., this would still be in my top 3 favorite games. I want to take this time to appreciate just how good the original was, and still is, even if the remaster is better. There really wasn't all that much changed in the remaster other than the combat. Just a few secret bosses, some smoother visuals, and a new OST. Hell, the only reason there is a new OST is because they couldn't get ACC to sign up for the project. The remaster really doesn't change all that much in the grand scheme of things, and under all the new content, Off is still definitely there. This does about as well of a job as a remaster can possibly do, and I'm very glad this game exists. I can finally enjoy one of my favorite games in a much more modern light. Thank you, Fangamer. You did a very, very good job.
The parts never moved from the shelves, and the ink faded away. You say you feel fine, but there's just no feelings at all. No feelings at all.